Jeep was driven um,
Mm-mm.
from Franklin to Spring Hill, and so it just kind of heated up the whole garage, just a giant heat soak right behind my head. So got a little fan going.
All right. Welcome back to Bankrupt Overland. We have a pretty cool episode lined up for you tonight. We've got Jimmy joining us with EV Swap. How's it going, Jimmy?
Hey, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. We also
Yeah,
got
seriously.
Steve. What's up,
What's up,
Steve?
man? Hey, it's been a minute.
It has. It's
Life,
been
dude.
yeah,
Yep.
it's life. It happens.
Yeah,
You can't. Yeah, it's just life. Whatever.
it is. It is what it is.
But we're not here to talk about life tonight. We're here
Nope.
to talk about
Cool
electric
shit.
swapping or EV swapping. I guess is it EV swapping a Land Cruiser, an 80 series Land Cruiser. So Jimmy's joining us. We found him on the social medias, and he has taken a Land Cruiser and put an electric motor in it, and he drives it around and wheels it across Moab and does some really cool stuff with it. So we were like, "Hey, Jimmy, we want to hear about you. Can you come
We
on
want
and
to
talk?"
know more.
And so Jimmy so kindly came on and joined us. Before we jump in, tell everybody where they can find you. I know you got a really good YouTube channel that goes through a lot of that stuff. Your social media is really cool to check out as well. So where can they find you, man?
Yeah, you can check me out on YouTube at Unique Mobility. Unique Mobility is a company that used to exist here in Colorado in the 70s, building electric cars. And now I've kind of taken that as my brand for my electric adventures. I've got a couple
I
electric
love it.
projects there. You can also follow me on Instagram at Electric Land Cruiser, which is pretty easy to remember.
Yep. That's
That's
awesome.
how we found you.
Yeah.
Yep. And lastly, you can check out my website at evswapconversions.com.
Like it.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, I've got a ton of questions, and I've been really excited and itching to get into this one. So
Yep.
we'll kind of go in and naturally when I go into these conversations, obviously the rigs are cool, the build process is cool, but I like to get into the mind of the builder and understand kind of
Mhm.
like where does a man learn the skills that it takes to take a 1996 Land Cruiser and say, I'm going to put an electric power plant in this. So I'm curious, man, what's your background? Kind of what got you into this electric vehicle lifestyle and kind of got you itching to do these kind of builds?
So I've always been into cars and racing cars, wrenching on cars. I guess about 15 years ago or so, I raced Spec Miata. So I got pretty good at wrenching on cars and learning about the basics and rebuilding them when I crashed them. Then for the past 10 years or so, I've been in the drone industry, so building and flying industrial drones for agriculture.
Yeah.
So that's where I learned how to do the wiring, the really intense like wiring diagrams and harnesses, and also working with high voltage lithium batteries. So that's kind of where I kind of got the skills for those two things.
Mhm.
And then I've always been interested in modifying cars and tuning them and stuff. So
Yeah.
nowadays, and especially in Colorado here, the emission regulations are just to the point where it's really hard to modify your car and also drive it on the street. So if you can convert it to electric, there's a lot less regulations around that right now. And I think it's kind of a
Interesting.
cool thing. So I just wanted to kind of blend those two ideas.
Let's be honest though, like you beat Toyota to the punchline. Like Toyota doesn't even have an EV Land Cruiser. They got that new hybrid or whatever, but yeah, you beat Toyota, the actual manufacturer, to that
Yeah,
starting line, man. So
it's kind of
kudos
cool.
to you.
I took it to Cruise Moab last year, and it
Yeah.
was the first electric vehicle that participated in that event.
Yo, that's
And
awesome.
that's like the biggest Land Cruiser event
Mhm.
there at Moab.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's the so you if you're in Cruise Moab, you're doing that. That's the part that totally gets me is like not only did you do it, but you're using it, right? You're using it
Yeah.
as it's intended. So
Yep.
you got the background in racing. You get into drones. You're learning kind of the high voltage, the wiring. Where's the point? Because I'm just trying to figure out if I've had this point in my life and I've missed it or I'm waiting for it. But where's the point where you're like, I'm just going to build me one of those?
Yeah, kind of. Just kind of been interested over the last couple of years, and during the pandemic, I was working from home, so I kind of was searching on the internet for things to do, like a project, and came across these electric vehicle swaps, which I was pretty interested in to start with. But
Yeah.
at that point, I'd been wheeling my 100 series Land Cruiser pretty hard and
Mhm.
got really into the four-wheel driving. So I kind of wanted to put those two things together.
Awesome. So your pandemic baby was a whole 80 series EV, huh?
Kind of. Yeah.
I'm sitting here
That's amazing.
in my head, Steve. I'm like, so this is the one person that did something productive during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Got it.
Copy. Yep. All right. End of show. Bye, guys.
I was also on the internet doing stuff, but not nearly as productive as that.
Yeah, that's
tried
pretty
to
amazing.
put something together that that would be totally cool and one of a kind. So
Well,
Yeah, you got that.
you hit the nail on the head. So
Yeah.
you got this background. So like you've worked on cars and racing. You had a 100 series. You wheeled it. So I assume you had to learn how to work on it because they're Land Cruisers and they break, unbeknownst to everybody else. Land Cruisers do break.
Yes,
And they're very expensive when you got to fix them.
they are.
But anyways, on to the more exciting stuff. So you decided you're gonna do this, and I had this question written down earlier. Did you have the electric motor idea or the Land Cruiser? Like first, like what was it? Was it did you buy the Land Cruiser to put the electric motor in, or did you like just say, hey, this is a great donor that we're gonna do it?
yeah, so I had the idea of converting a vehicle first, and then I chose the Land Cruiser. And so yeah, I did specifically
Nice.
buy this 80 just to convert it to electric. But I had a few ideas of maybe doing a sports car or a cruiser or like a classic American muscle car or something. But I
Nice.
just kind of I wanted to try something that I hadn't seen somebody try yet. And also
Yeah.
I think that the electric, well, now that I've done it, I know that the electric power plant is really perfect match for off-road driving. Everything except the range. It's got the perfect torque. It's really silent and
Mhm.
smooth. So it ended up being a really cool power plant.
We're definitely going to dig into that more because
Yes.
I also believe that an electric vehicle would make a great overland or like maybe local overland vehicle, right? If
Mhm.
you're going
Mhm.
an hour out of town, hitting up some good campsites, maybe hit a trail or two, drive back. I think that, your 300-400 mile range cars is probably there. I think that's a great idea. I want to come back to it. So when you're looking for a Land Cruiser to do an EV swap, what's important and what's not important to you?
That's a great question.
So when I was looking, I kind of wanted a Land Cruiser, basically because I was into the cruiser community already, and also because it's got the solid front axle. So I needed
Mhm.
one that's an 80 series or older. That was kind of my criteria: is 80 series or older, solid
Mhm.
front axle, and I wanted a Land Cruiser so that it could could take the weight of the batteries. So
Yeah.
that's why I didn't choose like a mini truck or something.
Mhm.
Um, so I was just looking on Craigslist and the other places, and so for me it just came down to the price. The 80 series I got was really cheap. It was only $1,000, but it had no title and it was like completely leaking every single fluid. It had 320,000 miles, and it was a basket case. It needed a lot of work,
Yeah.
but that was perfect because I was going to take the engine out. So
Yeah.
the price was right, and I was able to solve the title issue. And so that was my
Awesome.
criteria: is finding a cheap donor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I assume like, no rust, maybe minimal rust, but it's got to have good bones.
Good bones, yeah.
Yeah.
Good bones. And the axles, I assume, you can rebuild all that stuff. That's pretty easy. Not
Yeah.
easy, but
It had a berth. One of the front berths was clicking.
Mhm.
So I knew it needed that immediately. But other than that,
Yeah.
the drivetrain mechanically was pretty solid, even though it had all those miles. I just did the, front wheel bearings and diff oils and stuff.
oh, that's nice. That's
Wow.
yellow Toyota.
Yeah.
I guess also, I don't know, and we're probably going to get a little bit deeper into, are you running 12, 24 volt? But I guess you didn't want anything newer than an 80, right? Because there's a lot of electronics in the 100 series, and you knew that, because you had a 100 series. There's a lot of like early era electronics in those, right? Because there's kind of like the shift point between 80 and 100 was,
Yep.
80s were kind of the old school architecture. I wouldn't say it wasn't like way old, like a 60 or a 55 or 40 or something like that, but like it was a lot less electronics that you had to worry about, right?
Yeah, exactly. So for instance, I was able to maintain the airbag system in my 80, whereas in a 100 series, it would be
Mm-hmm.
pretty challenging, I think, to maintain the airbag because you'd have so many different warnings and
Sure,
check engine lights
sensors
and
and
things
yeah.
going off. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely older vehicles are more simple in that regard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've thought about it. Like you mentioned a classic. Like I've always thought like a classic muscle car that's fully electric that you just like roll into the meetup and nobody can
To the
see, like,
drag strip and
that's the ultimate flex in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, yeah, that would be a cool one. Or yeah, that's the thing with electric conversions is really if you have a cool car in mind, it's going to make a cool electric conversion.
Yeah.
There's really, as long as you do it right and you use
Mhm.
the right amount of power and everything.
that might be the one liner that we use for the clip.
For the clip, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like stuck on that one. That one's great. So moving on. So we've identified this Land Cruiser for $1,000. Great price, by the
That's
way.
a really good price. Yeah.
Like even for a shell of a Land Cruiser, that's a good
Mhm.
find. We know it's leaking. It's got crazy miles. No big deal, right? So what exactly are you removing from this Land Cruiser that you don't need anymore? Is it just the motor? Is it the motor transmission? Or what's that look like so we kind of know exactly what's getting removed from that Land Cruiser that's not going to be used going forward?
Yeah, so I removed the engine and the radiator, the oil cooler, and also the transmission. I removed the gas tank, the fuel lines, the fuel filler, and the exhaust, the evaporative system, pretty much
Mhm.
everything having to do with the gasoline engine. So the
Yeah.
only things that I left was the braking system, the steering, and yeah, that's about it. I left the wiring harness for the chassis.
Yeah.
I left all that intact. So everything to do with the gas engine was removed.
Awesome.
And you kept the transfer case, right?
Yes. Yeah, so the transmission is gone, but I kept the transfer case.
Okay, so can we work from the transfer case to the power? How does that piece work, right? Because so in my head, and I'm kind of an idiot, by meaning I don't know anything about electric vehicles and how power goes to the wheels. What I do know is how a combustion engine works, right? There's the engine spinning, goes to the transmission, that's put into a transfer case, and that goes to your axle. So you have the transfer case, that's what you're keeping. What goes into the transfer case, and how does that work from power distribution from your new power being the electric motor to the actual axles that's going to be the standard Land Cruiser axles?
Right. So from the transfer case, then I've got a device called the black box doubler, and that's a reduction unit.
Cool.
So
That does sound
gives
really
me,
cool.
it gives
Put
me an
that on the
additional,
t-shirt.
that's like an additional low range. So
Okay.
so that gives me like a 2.7 to 1 reduction straight into the transfer case. And so that I run in low range all the time.
Mhm.
And then from that, I've got the electric motor basically bolted straight onto it. So the power feeds directly into the doubler and then into the transfer case and then to the axles. So I can have the regular transfer case in high range for on the
Mhm.
road and then low range for off road. And it really, just like on a gasoline truck, the low range gives you tons of torque
Mhm.
from a stop, and you can climb anything with low range.
So that's a little different. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a little different than how like vehicle manufacturers are putting, right? They have electric motor at every wheel or
Yeah.
either opposite wheels or whatever, right? So this is what's so cool about your system is that it's literally a transplant from the electric motor to your black box doubler. Everything is the same. Whereas electric vehicles, they have a motor on individual wheels. So that's what I was going to eventually lead to. But that's really cool how you're able to figure that out, man.
Thanks. Yeah, that was kind of the goal of the truck, is because the way that Land Cruisers work, or Jeeps or anything with the solid axles, is through the suspension and the mechanical traction.
Sure.
So that's why it's a great truck for off-roading. So
Mhm.
yeah, like the Rivian and the Hummer, they get around that with really clever independent suspension and really clever motors and stuff. But I think that even those kinds of trucks are going to go back to good old fashioned low range gear reduction, because
Mhm.
you just can't beat it.
No.
With my truck, even though I'm just using a pretty low power Nissan Leaf motor, when I go into low range, I've got like tons and tons of torque, just like you'd expect with, a low range gearing. So I
Wow.
think that you're going to see the OEMs go to that. Um, but there's a
That's
lot of
awesome.
reasons for doing it the way they do it too.
Sure.
The Nissan boys are going to have a fit with this one.
They are. Don't tell them. You can't believe you put a leaf motor. That's so. Nissan's like, yes.
I say this in all good fun. We have a good amount of folks that
Yeesh.
are good friends with us in the community here that drive Nissans, and
Ethan's
Oh, I
gonna
see.
rag us, dude. Ethan's gonna be Ethan drives a Frontier, a TRD. Sorry, not
yeah,
TRD. He's a Pro 4X, Pro 4X, Frontier, and yeah, he's gonna drag us for this one for
uh,
sure.
so that's awesome. I had no idea it was it's a Nissan Leaf. So, and I'm still fascinated. So I was at a total learning curve there for a second while you guys were going through that. I had no idea. Once again, ignorant to electric vehicles and how this all works. But I had no idea that the way the manufacturers are doing it is having independent motors at
Mhm.
the wheels instead of your traditional plants. Which I would think, because they're manufacturing cars, they would try to keep things as similar as possible for their gas powered vehicles, right? Like just make axles. But
Mhm.
what do I know, right? I'm not the car
Right.
manufacturer.
So I guess maybe an idea behind why they did individual motors on the wheels is that you can tap into that regenerative braking. And I don't know if your system has regenerative braking, Jimmy, but if it does, I'm gonna leave this. That would be wild if it did. But I think that's one of the reasons why they did individual motors, is to tap into and kind of extend the range a little bit. But
Yeah. Yeah. So my truck does have regen.
God, get out of here,
And
dude. What
it's
is
really cool
happening?
when you nose down an obstacle. It just puts you in your seatbelt, and it really holds you, like you don't even need to use the brakes. It's really cool. But yeah,
I'm so blown away by right now. That's crazy.
the OEMs are really different from what I'm doing too, because
Yeah.
the guys who buy those, they want to not only go off-roading, but they want to go 100 miles an hour and blow the doors off a Porsche and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the
Sure.
Rivian and the Hummer have like tons of horsepower,
Mhm.
and part of that's because they have more than one motor. I think the Rivian has 4 motors and the Hummer has 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, both of them are independent suspension.
Yep.
Look at this. I'm
Wow.
learning all kinds of shit tonight. This is
This is
great.
cool, man. This is
So we've established that there's no transmission, so you just go to the floor. There's no first, second, third, fourth. You just
Yeah. Yep. Just from 0 to 70 miles an hour, about, you just can drive. And then if you're in low range, it's about 0 to about 30 or 40 miles an hour.
So that's like a
Okay.
standard like high low range. Seriously. Like well, I mean,
Yep.
we can go a little faster than 70, but like
Because we're on
Ma-
Land Cruisers, not 80 series.
yeah.
Yep,
So
and it's
yeah,
it's
fair.
similar
That's
to an
awesome.
automatic where
Mhm.
you just put your foot on the throttle and get into it, but at the same time, if you lift off the throttle, it'll come all the way to a complete stop.
Yeah.
So it's just you have tons of control over the wheel speed and everything.
So you can't coast, is what you're telling me.
You can coast, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and you can adjust the regen if you want. You can have higher or lower. So
That-
it's really cool.
That's
wow.
sweet.
Wow.
Is the power the same all the way up? Like, so if you press the power down at 30 or at 50, is it the same amount of power, that kind of responsiveness?
A little bit. The most responsive is between like 20 miles an hour and 40 miles an hour. It's actually
Mm.
pretty punchy. When it's below about 20 miles an hour, the computer actually limits your output, and then the faster you go, it's just a big old truck too, so it doesn't accelerate super fast at the high
Sure.
end. But it's about as fast as a stock Land Cruiser. It's definitely not slower, and since you don't have to shift through the gears, it's just surge of acceleration all the way. It's really
That's crazy.
it's just like an EV if you've ever
Yeah.
driven an EV.
So what happens when you get to 70 miles an hour? Does it like not cut power, but you just don't accelerate any faster
Yeah,
on a flat
that's
surface?
just the RPM limiter of the motor,
Oh, okay.
and that's about 11,000 RPM for the motor.
Oh my God. What in the Honda is
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Oh man.
So
Go ahead, Steve.
So we kind of talked about how you have the. I want to talk for a second about the electric motor, like why? Because when LJ first said, "Yo, I found this dude that swapped an EV, swapped an EV motor into an 80," I was like, "Yes, bring him on." The second one was like, he didn't just grab a Tesla and like throw an 80 series body on it, right? So like, I'm really curious about like what made you take the Nissan Leaf motor and what was appealing to it and why did you go that route?
The two big reasons was number one is cost. The
Okay.
Leaf is one of the most produced EVs, and they're one of the lower end EVs, so the
Mhm.
cost is a lot lower. And I
Sure.
bought one off of Copart, the insurance auction site.
Nice.
yeah.
Yep.
So-
Yeah, I love Copart.
So for about $5,000, I was able to get the Leaf, and so that gave me everything. It gave me the motor, the inverter, of course, the battery, and then the
Yep.
BMS, the battery management system,
hmm
as well as the contactors, some of the wiring harness, and the charger. So like the public plug-in charger.
hmm
So all of the hardware is included because it's obviously an EV. And then the
Okay.
second key is a device called the Resolve EV controller, and that is a VCU or a vehicle control unit. It's
Mhm.
basically like an ECU is to an engine,
Sure.
and so that has all your inputs and outputs. Yep, there it is. And so that it has your inputs and outputs that you wire into, like your throttle,
Mhm.
your gear selection, your
Wow.
speed sensors and things like that. And
Yeah.
it controls all of the devices in the car. So those were the two reasons, because I had all the equipment and then I had the ability
Sure.
to use it all.
That's amazing, dude. So I, I want to take a step back and mention something. What I love about EVs and kind of them exploring like the off-road life is you could literally go to a campground, plug your vehicle in, camp out, asleep in the back of it, and have AC running or heat running the entire night if it's a plug-in, right? Like if you get to one of those 30 amp sites,
Yeah.
you could like literally have AC or heat and you're sleeping comfortably all
And
night and you're not running.
charging your battery.
That is so awesome, man. That is my
Yeah.
mind is being constantly blown by just this 20 minutes that we've been on this call.
Yeah,
I-
EVs
I-
are really cool, but it all comes back down to the battery range. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest trick.
So we decided that you're still cheaper than what I paid for my Land Cruiser.
No, man, this is wild.
So we're $6,000 into this project, and you have two vehicles, and you have all the parts you need essentially to do this,
Yeah.
which I'm thoroughly impressed by. Did you like what forum did you go to learn all this, or did you just like start researching? Like how does one gain that knowledge?
Uh, yeah, it's kind of dispersed the knowledge base. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of people on Instagram, a lot of people on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's a website called DIYelectriccar.com, which is full of a lot of like spam bots and other things, but there's some good info there. And I've got a build thread on that site.
Yeah.
But basically, I kind of had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do, and then
Yeah.
as I went, I researched. So I knew about the Resolve EV controller, so I knew that I just needed to buy a Leaf and start hacking it apart and see how it fits in the cruiser. So
So basically, you just cut the parts off the Leaf that you didn't need and just left put what you didn't need inside the Land Cruiser. I love it. I
Yep.
love it. So that makes sense. I was going through my head. I was like, okay, this feels like and that's what I love about this world too, right? If you want to do something, there's no excuse. There's
Mhm.
no excuse. There's no, I don't have the money for this class. There's none of that, right? If
Mhm.
you want to do it, there are a ton of free resources out there that if you put your mind to it, you can go out and find
Yep.
and learn, right? You got to be willing to cut up a leaf to do it.
Yeah.
You can do it.
You can do it. Yeah.
yeah, and like I cut the motor mounts off the chassis of the Land Cruiser,
Yeah.
so like it's not going back to being gas powered.
It's
I was kind
always
of
an
committed
EV.
from the start to it. So
Wow.
I love
So are
that.
you running 35s? No.
just 33s.
Okay. Got to be fuel efficient or
Yeah.
electricity efficient. I don't know.
It would be cool to go to bigger.
So I was looking at so how big is this motor? So I'm going to pull this back up here because I'm going to be super surprised if this is the actual motor. Is this the motor here?
Yep, that's the motor.
No way. Dude, you can put a tent in that engine bay right there.
Yeah, it's like a stack of 4 shoe boxes.
That's it. That's the motor. I mean, your
Wow.
motor's wow.
And
Yo,
so it's
that's-
100 horsepower, about 200 foot-pounds of torque. And so that's just one key. The reason it's so small is because it's not showing the battery, and the battery is 600 pounds, as big as an
Mhm.
engine block.
Yeah.
Which was my next question. Where does the battery live?
So the battery is right underneath the hood. So if you see a picture, it's basically right underneath the hood. That's what it looked like when it was in the Leaf. So I had to take
Mhm.
it all apart and reorganize it.
Mm.
Okay.
But the battery and the charger and the inverter are underneath the hood, and then the motor is down in the transmission tunnel, basically. So that's the motor or the
Oh.
battery there.
Wow.
So everything
What's-
that gray box and everything inside of it is 600 pounds.
So like what does an 80 series, an FCJ 80 series engine weigh? I can't imagine it'd be any more than 600 pounds. So like the structural support
Yeah,
should be
it's-
there, right? Like that's so awesome.
Yeah, I think it's like 670 pounds, something like that. And then
Oh yeah.
with the automatic transmission, the whole package is about 900 pounds, I think.
So yeah, the chassis is more than capable of handling that amount of battery right there in that's compartment.
Yeah, if anything, it's lighter. I weighed the
Yeah.
truck before and after, and
Mhm.
it's 100 pounds heavier now. But of course, I've got the off-road bumper, the winch, things
Sure.
like that. So I think apples to apples, it's actually a little bit lighter.
Yeah. I mean, you're almost right, like 100 pounds. That's not like you're almost at spec weight, and you
Yeah.
have a whole EV, electric motor in there, bumpers and everything. That blows my mind. You should put
Oh,
a
man.
snorkel on your truck just for shits and giggles.
You think?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
made it waterproof, so I should be able to ford rivers as is.
Nice. That's
That-
amazing.
That would be a cool test whenever you're done. Really, maybe you gotta replace the batteries at some point. You get to go. Okay, I'm gonna go try this underwater. See how long it goes.
Well, I'm planning on taking it up this year into the mountains of Colorado when the river crossing season is at its peak, and we'll see what
Awesome.
it can do.
When is
Wow.
river crossing season in Colorado? This sounds
Like
interesting.
June, July, somewhere in there.
Okay, so all the snow melt and everything.
Yeah.
Mm.
Have you taken it up to like I guess you could take it to like Black Bear down the San Juans, all that area, or where are you thinking to go?
Not yet. So I've done with my gas powered 100 series, I've done all that. So I have the experience of those trails, but now I want to do it with the electric truck. So I've only done Cruise Moab. I've done a Yankee Hill trail with the local club, but that's really all. I need to get out there more trails. So I'm actually next week going down to Hurricane, Utah. You guys probably know of Matt's Off-Road Recovery. They're doing the Wrecker Olympics, or Wrecker
Nice.
Games, and I'm going to go down there and take
Whoa.
the EV. So, but that's the plan, is just to wheel the crap out of it. So
Yeah.
So what's the range, right? So we talked about the build. It just still sounds weird, but the Nissan Leaf is powering the mighty Land Cruiser. It's reality. It's reality, people. It's reality.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. It's reality. So, oh, it's a puppy.
yep, this is my dog Zorro.
Zorro.
What's up, Zorro? Yes.
So the range is between 60 and 70 miles, I think. I haven't actually tested it.
Sure.
It's just on my list of things. But for my estimate so far, I think that's the range, which I really want to add more batteries so I can go further. But so right now I trailer it most places
Yeah.
if I'm going to go wheeling.
Yeah.
So is that 60 to 70 miles off road that you get in off-road driving conditions?
I think the off-road driving and the on-road so far is about the same efficiency.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, you can go definitely 50 miles off-road.
50 miles off-road. See, I think, in a day, that's about all you're going to want to off-road anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
You're pretty done. Do you see, I guess it doesn't matter as far as time goes, because if you're sitting idle, you're not using the battery. So that's,
Other than like AC and electronics and inside the cab.
Right. Yeah. So unfortunately, there's no AC. It would be nice, but you're right. When you're stopped, you're not really using anything. If the vehicle's still turned on, it has some parasitic draw from the power steering pump and the brake pump and things like that. But I've actually got some solar panels on my Gamma VD roof rack.
Yeah.
And the solar panels help to offset some of that parasitic draw.
Nice.
But
Awesome.
unlike a gas truck where you spend a lot of time idling, waiting for the guys in front of you to clear the obstacle, with the EV, you're kind of just sitting there in dead silence, just waiting your turn, but not using any energy.
That's wild.
Nice shout out to Gamma VD. Guy makes some great products.
Yeah,
dude, I'm really excited that you're running his rack. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually
really
his idea
awesome
to put the solar panels up there. And so when I actually want to use it to charge, I can tilt them either way on the truck to get the best angle at the sun.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I've got a battery backup at the back that I can charge the truck from, and I can almost charge it all day long off the solar.
That's awesome.
You know what? Have you ever thought about bringing like a little Predator generator to like I know it kind of defeats the purpose, right?
Yeah, I have thought about that, but so far I haven't needed to do anything like that.
Awesome.
Like in Moab, there's tons of EV charging all over town. Same with the location where I live. So that's kind of what I try to focus on, is try to find EV charging or charge at home.
Awesome.
So but the idea is maybe in the future to do more solar stuff.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask. Can you, so Steve was mentioning like plug in like a campsite, like in ignorance of the EV guy here. Can you plug in at like a campsite and get charged up, or do you have to have like a certain type of charger for this?
Oh yeah, I could plug in at a campsite. That would be pretty good charge. That's usually like a 220 plug. And that would charge up my truck pretty quickly. I definitely would charge it overnight.
Nice. So we have this park down around Chattanooga called Colmont OHV, and it's an off-roading park that they're building a bunch of new trails on. But they have RV hookups there, and so you could legitimately, like, it would be a great place to go for the weekend, wheel during the day, come back, plug your car in, charge it up overnight. As Steve said, turn the heat on while you take your nappy nap. And you wake up in the morning, your car's full. You go off, wheel again. Like, is
At
that not?
zero cost, like except for the campsite, like zero gas, nothing. Like that.
Yeah, that's actually the type of thing that I've got in my mind to try out and see
Yes.
if you can actually make that work.
Yeah, there's going to be a point, right, where your RVs are going to be all electric, and it's just going to be a
Mhm.
matter of like. So I think I truly believe you're ahead of the time where
I
you
agree.
got Rivian, you have all these electric vehicles coming out. Like sooner or later, you're going to go to campsites, where we went down in the Chattahoochee, and they're going to have just an electric hookup there for you to
Mhm.
plug your car in when you go there, and so you're going to be able to do those things, and it's going to be just normal place, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's so readily available now that we can get on forums, we can learn, we can
With
educate
or without
ourselves.
spam bots, but yeah.
Oh, well, I think spam bots come with learning those things. It's a
Yeah.
part of it. And you can do it. I mean, that's just that it still blows my mind, but it's
Yeah.
super cool to know that you can do it. And I think that support is coming soon, sooner than we probably think, right?
Yeah.
For this type of travel to be really accessible, right?
Yep.
But you were talking about range, and I think that's the biggest challenge that I see. So we had Jake Berkey on last year, and he builds rock bouncers and throws 600 horsepower engine. I think is the smallest
1,000
engine.
horsepower. Yeah.
He's building some death machines basically. And of course, down here in the South, we just run them up a hill full speed. That's what we call it. But I was talking to him, I was like, you should build an electric one. Like you
Yeah.
could totally build it. And he's like, if someone pays me, I'll do it. I have everything online. He goes, the problem is range. I was like, but you're towing these things everywhere anyways.
Mhm.
Wherever you're going probably has an RV hookup, because he was talking about saying his RV. I'm going, dude, you just gotta plug
Yep.
that bad boy in and you're good to go. So we talk about range. I'm curious, like, how many miles does one battery that you would add give you an extra range?
Yes. So first of all, that's a really good point about like a rock buggy or a rock bouncer that's like a dedicated off-road machine that you're trailering
Yeah.
anyway.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of promise there because that's kind of what my Land Cruiser has turned into. So right now I've got 60, 70 miles range. If I add another battery, same size that I currently have, which that's actually my plan this year, is to add it down where the gas tank used to be.
Oh
Then
yeah.
that'll basically double my range right there. So 120-ish miles. And then once I get about that range, now I'm at the point where I can leave my house, drive into the mountains here and do a trail, and then drive back to my house all
Mhm.
with one charge. So that's kind of, I think, the sweet spot once I get over 120-ish miles of range. Of course, the Rivian, the Hummer, they've got like 300 miles, but the battery in those trucks is like 5 times bigger
Mhm.
than my battery. So really the battery, it just costs weight and it costs
Mhm.
money. So
Yeah.
those are the two biggest obstacles.
What's the average life of one of those batteries? Because I mean, it's you can't rebuild a battery, right? You got to get a new one, I assume.
Right. Yeah, they do have a lifespan. It's probably about 15 or 20 years, depending how it's used. If you use it harder, maybe like 10 years.
Yeah.
Some of the early Leafs had problems where the batteries degrade really fast. But nowadays, probably about 15 to 20. So they don't last forever, but they do last a good chunk of life. And then hopefully in 15 years from now, the technology is so far progressed that
Mhm. You could
I
buy a
can
new
take
Leaf and
I can take this battery out and put in a battery that is the same size and weight, but
yeah.
it can give me 300 miles range.
Yeah.
Because the underlying basis of the truck doesn't need to change,
Mhm.
just the battery at that point.
If you look at engines, that is going to be a fact, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you look at engines in the 80s. I think this thing came from the factory with 99 horsepower. 99 horsepowers.
Yep.
You can't buy a Kia with less than 150 horsepower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just
Yeah.
it's impossible. And so I think you're right. I mean, and you look at it with the technology industry as well, which is where Steve and I live every day. Is everything has gotten more and more in the same size. So you're on the right track there. I think 10 years from now you'll be able to throw the same size battery in and get maybe double, triple the range just based on technology advances.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great if so, because right now I was just driving it the other day and wished I had a bigger battery already. So
Yeah. There's like new emerging battery technologies, right? So I assume that you're using like lithium, right? Which is
Yeah.
the typical battery chemistry. But now I was just watching a YouTube video a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I actually sent it to Jeff. It's a new aluminum, and I don't remember the exact like LiFePO4. I don't remember the exact aluminum, but it was an aluminum based battery, and the capacity and the discharge rate and the charge rate was like tenfold better than lithium is right now. And as you know, lithium is to mine it is actually pretty intensive process. So like to your point is, as technology advances, as we get further and further down this EV path, new technologies you'll be able to plug in this new battery made out of XYZ component, and then you'll have double, triple, quadruple the range, which will be incredible.
yeah, and like I said, the electric motor and the other things are already really, almost I'd say as good as you can get. Like the Tesla motors are 97% efficient or something like that. So yeah, the electric car, the underlying bones of them is the technology is great. It's just the batteries are the weak spot of it. So
and like honestly, you mentioned 10 years on the short end, but like how much gas do you spend in 10 years? How much oil do you change in 10 years?
Right.
These are things that people don't necessarily consider because it's a daily or weekly purchase that you have to do. So yeah, like buying a whole new battery pack in 10 years, I can't imagine that's any more expensive than 10 years worth of gas, especially in our vehicles that get 10 miles per gallon,
Right.
So
yeah, I was never on the EV train until the pandemic changed my point of view, because we both work out of our home now, and so the majority, like 90% of the driving that we do, is within 30 miles of our home. Right, it's no more than 100 miles a day is being done in any vehicle at any given time. Where I'm going, man, if we had just a little EV vehicle sat here plugged in and out, I'm putting a tank of gas in that Yukon every week to get kids to and from school, maybe a couple meetings here and there. Erica might have a meeting here and there, right? And I'm going, man, that could be $0 a week, and just plug it in, right? And so it's like, as a guy who clearly is, grew up in the American muscle era, I'm starting to see areas where it makes a lot of sense, for me. Meaning, and I'm thinking, if I'm seeing it, then a lot more people got to be seeing it, right? And now we're swapping Nissan Leafs into Land Cruisers. Like, the world's changing, people. The world's changing. You better keep up.
Yeah, and like you say, those short trips around town, the EV is perfect for that. So that's what I use my truck for. And the great thing is it's a still cruiser, so I can put my dog in it, or I can put the seats down and load it full of stuff if I buy a bunch of stuff. And also, I just lost my train of thought. Well, yeah, but it's just a great in that respect of a cheap around town car.
For sure.
Yeah, it definitely keeps the ops low, right? You don't have to, it's not that ongoing. Now that's one of the question I did have. Well, I got a bunch of more, but what I'm curious on the motor. So you pulled the motor out of the Leaf, right? Now, are EV motors, do you look at them like you do with combustion motors, like miles on the motor? Or is it like hours? How is that kind of equated in the EV world?
To be honest, I haven't thought that far ahead. I think most people, the general consensus is that the electric motors are like, there's one moving part, really the central stator, and it's supported by some ball bearings. So those ball bearings can wear out, but that's probably 500,000 miles maybe of like regular driving. So
Wow.
for me, I bought a Leaf that had about 30 some thousand miles on it, and it's good as new, practically no wear. So the battery is degraded from new,
Mhm.
but the rest of the electronic components kind of don't wear out. Sometimes the chargers go bad, but everything else should be pretty bulletproof.
Man, so you mentioned you have other projects. I'm assuming I just got to figure out where do I get in line whenever I find whatever
Yeah.
sale I want to do. I just want to ship it to Denver and
Yeah.
find me a 5K Leaf too.
I want a 62 sent to your house to throw a Leaf motor in there, baby.
Yeah, well, we can maybe work something out. That's kind of my goal, is to
Okay.
transform this into kind of a business. So
Yeah.
I want to do EV conversions, and also maybe like if somebody out there has stalled out on their own project, I could do like consulting.
Yeah.
Because I've got quite a bit of experience diagnosing electrical circuits and things like that.
Yeah.
So especially and now with vehicles. So that's kind of my goal, is to kind of make a
Awesome.
career out of this thing.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, you definitely have the knowledge and I would say the confidence as far as like understanding it, knowing the basics, knowing what's going to be your catches and your gotchas and those kind of things. So good to hear that you're looking to take this and leverage that skill you've gotten, because that's a good skill. That's a skill that I think is going to be very, very valuable as the world goes on. I've been in the planning stages of my next build, and it's going to be for my wife. It's going to be a Defender, and off the bat, I want to just remove the crap British engineering and just like I was like, just throw an LS in it, or maybe go EV, because she wants it to be a nice car, a car that she can drive around town. And I'm like, what a great way to do that! Just totally piss off every purist Land Rover.
Yeah.
Rip out the British engine and put in an EV. So we might be in contact in the next year or so as this build comes to play, because that's like, that would be, as I'm looking at it, because you also got a question too, in 30 years, are you going to be allowed to drive a combustion engine around?
Right.
You got to ask that question. Like, it's a real question.
Defender's a great chassis too, because those are aluminum, aren't they? The body.
I was just like, give me your number right now.
I'm sold.
He's like, yes, give me a 110 Defender, baby.
But yeah,
give me that
like
130.
The sky's the limit with the electric conversions too. Mine is just a Nissan Leaf based one, but you can have a Tesla one with 700 horsepower. If you want, you can have one with a huge battery instead of a small battery. So
Yeah.
the sky's kind of the limit. And also going back to your earlier point about solar and charging up at home, like there's a kind of self-sufficiency angle to it. Whereas as gasoline gets more expensive, like you say, the regulations, are we even going to be allowed to drive them even if we can afford them? With my Cruiser, I got some solar panels in my backyard, so I can charge it up over a day or two, and then I could go drive it. So it's
free.
Kind of
that
cool.
That is 100% free.
Yeah, and maybe it's not practical, but it is. As you say, I'm driving around. So
my Land Cruiser sits for 2 or 3 days at a time. It could be charged up all the time, but I still got to go put gas in the thing.
Yep. Yeah.
That's killer, dude. You're charging it. Yeah. See, that's the kind of stuff that's really cool. Being able to say, hey, yeah, I charge my. We want to go wheeling. What is it, Wednesday? Yeah, let me throw them some solar panels up real quick. We charge up by Friday.
What I'm so excited about is like the future of EV, right? Once the technology, we kind of were talking about it, once the technology kind of advances, we can now have complete off-grid EV platforms, right? Where you're doing induction cooking, you're charging your phones, you're gathering solar, you're no sort of peripherals that you need to tote around. You don't need to tote around gas. Hell, you want to go up to Arctic Circle? Yeah, sure. The batteries are heated. Go drive. Like, and it's all self-sufficient, off-grid, just like livable situations. And it's just, this world of EV is so exciting to me. I know there's a lot of people that are very skeptical of it, but I think what you're doing is taking older platforms and transplanting that is huge. Like that's why I'm so excited to have you on, and I hope to have like continuing conversations, because you're on the bleeding edge of something that not a lot of people are doing. Like let's just call it what it is you're doing stuff that even big manufacturers haven't done before. So yeah, man, huge shout out to you. I'm excited to see where you take this. I'm excited to see you grow your business. The key word is I'm excited, plain and simple. That's all it is.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited too. This Land Cruiser is just an experiment, but I think it's
Yeah.
kind of a showcase of what you can do. And frankly, maybe I got to get out there so you guys can drive it, because it is just a hoot to drive.
Yeah. So what other projects are you working on? You mentioned I can't just let that hang out there. You said you had some other projects you're working on.
I've got a 1982 Unique Mobility Electrek, which is a fiberglass car based on a
Nice.
Volkswagen Rabbit with an electric motor from
Yes.
back in the late 70s. They designed these
Hell
things,
yes.
and they only made about 60 of them. So it's really rare car, and
Mhm.
I'm kind of restoring it from the ground up. So I've got some videos on my YouTube channel, Unique Mobility, about that. And then I've got some, of course, my 100 series Land Cruiser. I've got an
Mhm.
LX 470, and so that's kind of like my baby. And I actually
Mhm.
use that truck to tow my Land Cruiser.
Is
So
this the car you
yeah, that's actually my buddy Declan's car, but that's the car.
That is rad.
Wow,
That is
dude!
so
Oh, it's so amazing.
And mine is brown with brown stripes.
Dude, our
Aw,
car designs nowadays suck. This is so cool, man.
Yeah, and it's
I
a
love
quirky
this.
car. It's the first
Yes.
production EV with regenerative braking. It's got some other quirky things about it.
79. Wow.
that's really cool. Oh man.
If so, for our listeners, you really need to check out uniquemobility.org. Seriously, this, just that one picture solidified me. I'm gonna bookmark your site now just because it's so awesome.
Yeah,
Just-
that's my buddy side, Declan, but
Yeah.
he's a gearhead too, and he really loves the electrics.
Oh man.
That's stellar. So sorry, I got lost when you said Unique Mobility Electric. I had to go look that up. You were
Yeah.
talking about your almost Land Cruiser Lexus that you own. Is that right?
Yep. So I got the fancy one.
It's basically one, all right.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
mean it's
Do you have a sticker on the back that says it's basically a Land Cruiser? If not, I know the guy who makes them.
I'll send you one. I'll send
okay. Yeah, I definitely need that, but mine still has all the Lexus badges, and I make no bones about it. I like the Lexus version. I think it's better. So I've got an 07.
One of
and
us. One of us.
It's on 33s. I got sliders and bumpers, and
Nice.
I love wheeling that thing.
Yes.
Big 100 Series fans here, right? I have the
Mhm.
real Land Cruiser. Steve has basically a Land Cruiser.
Yep.
And fun fact: I watched Steve's stock Land Cruiser outwheel a lot of very built vehicles.
Yes.
This fall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They are. They're such incredible rigs, and it's getting to the point now where they're kind of losing their nostalgia. That big hype is over, and they're not getting not worth as much anymore. So it's like just keep it on forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I bought mine a couple years ago before the big spike, and yeah, I'll probably hang on
Nice.
to it as long as I can.
Yeah, Steve and I think found the last few sub 10K Land Cruisers that were for sale.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, well, if my Land Cruiser ever blows up, it might be in Denver, getting an electric motor put in it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, hey, this was freaking awesome, man. Thanks
was
for coming
amazing.
on. Thanks for telling us your story, how you got into it. the build, I mean, that was really cool to learn the thought process into it. And I was blown
Mhm.
away when you said it's powered by Nissan. Like I'm still
Can't believe it.
on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, those Nissans are really well engineered cars, so it
That's
worked out.
awesome.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. I had a blast, and I look
did too.
forward to keeping in touch, following along,
Yes.
and maybe we have a project down the road together. Who knows?
Cool. Yeah,
Amazing.
I really appreciate you guys having me. It was fun to talk about cruisers.
Yes, definitely.